And we are live, so it is time for Who Makes the News, hosted by Alisia Evans. Alisia, tell us what the show is all about.
Yes, hi. Who Makes the News is where I go through the Fiji Sun and the Fiji Times, the two national print media papers for Fiji, and look to the headlines, see what are the stories that are making the headlines, and if they portray or include women in a positive way.
Right, so as per usual, we will start with the sports. I understand that over the past 2 days, there has been basketball, swimming, weightlifting, cricket, and hockey making the sports news. So women in those sports. How have you found the reporting of those sports, of the women in those sports?
Well, it depends on which article you're looking at, because some of the articles do actually go and quote the athletes themselves. Others are just literally stating the results of those competitions and those games, and others are, for example, I think in today's Sun, there was something about hockey team of the women's hockey team in training in action, but they only speak to the male coach, and it's like,
Right.
okay, so the women's team don't have a coach, or is it the same coach, and who is this woman who's in the picture? Yeah, it's like unequal coverage of female athletes in the South Pacific Games.
Have you found any good coverage though? While I guess it is sort of rocky between everyone not getting the same kind of coverage. Has there been anything that stood out to you?
I guess maybe the cricket team, the Fiji women's cricket team, which is in today's Fiji Sun, Fiji Times. It's written by Shelvin Chand, and he's talking about the Fiji women's cricket team going against PNG, and they quote the top hitter for the Fijians, Semaene Lomani. And so she's quoted, and she's talking about, we'll come back fresh for another go tomorrow. And asking her, she's basically just saying how she's thinking about the competition, the other teams. And I also like the fact that the Times, they have something called Tamara's Diary. And it's written by Tamara, who I believe also works for the Fiji Times. So in terms of a woman's, a non-athlete's perception of game, I guess you get perspective to see it through, a woman's eyes in the papers. So I kind of like it. But moving away from the South Pacific Games and focusing more on local sports, there is a section through the Fiji Post insert, which they include weekly, and it is an article featuring the under 16 girls team for the Southern Zone, and it's kind of a funny one. It might not be a very good coverage, but at least they're making the paper, and I
Somehow.
guess it's kind of, somehow. But it's like, okay, the title of the article doesn't really reflect the content of the article itself, because the title of the article is "Futsal Trials for World Cup Qualifier." And the article goes on to talk about the Southern Zone games, and it mentions nothing about the World Cup. I have no idea what a futsal is. It sounds like a footstool. I don't know. And I'm just not really happy with the kind of coverage. It's only quoting, I believe, the coach for the Nausori High School under 16 girls teams. And it says that, through the Fiji Football Association's development on women in soccer, the girls now have access to equipment and they can train better. I guess that means a lot for, getting comfortable with the equipment that you're using, shin pads, balls that you're using. It's much easier to play in a competitive environment. So that's good, but I mean, in terms of the coverage, it's just kind of off there.
Yeah, I mean, we've noticed that there's been a little bit of an issue with headings. I mean, I think it was pointed out in the summary you sent to me about the story about our consultation that made the Fiji Times, I believe, yesterday. It was a horrendous article, for one. Just looking at it, there were inconsistencies, there were typos, they got like half their facts wrong, and it was titled, what was the title of it? It was just really,
it was titled Plight of Women.
yeah, so it was really like, it wasn't empowering at all, and so completely defeats the purpose about what half of our consultations are about anyway. But before we touch the issues that were discussed, I mean, Labasa Consultation made the news, and that was kind of good. But in terms of other women making the news, I believe you mentioned that there were 2 profiles that made the news yesterday, but it doesn't seem like there were any today. Oh no, we have a complication. Can you hear me? Or has my internet died? I can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now I can hear you. Oh, thank God. I was like, oh, I had a heart attack. But yeah, so just touching on the women who made the news in the past 2 days, maybe. Could you just tell me a little bit about maybe whether or not any profiles made the news today in the Fiji Sun and Fiji Times?
Profiles for today, the women who made
Yeah.
the news. Yeah, well, there was one particular article, I believe it was in the Fiji Times. Yes, and it's about the informal settlers, and they have
Right.
interviewed the resident in an informal settlement. Her name is Sumintra Devi Prasad. And basically, the CEO of the Raki Raki Town Council has said that the informal settlers will now be given land titles, and they'll be legally on land, which means that they will now be paying rates basically for living land to entitle them to the benefits like proper drainage and water supply, which is fantastic, which is great. But what the financial security of living, will they be able to afford these rates to enjoy the benefits of being a formal settler and living on formal land? So that wasn't really highlighted. It was just kind of portraying this woman as saying, this upgrade means that our families will enjoy this, and we're very happy, and my children's future will be brighter. But it's a very kind of one-sided of this issue.
Sorry, I've taken my mask because it's morning tea break. But again, there is probably a reason why they live in informal settlements, and they're very often financial reasons.
Yeah.
Although there are other issues, particularly with access to land, and in a place like Raki Raki, access to land, and just generally out of the capital.
Yeah.
Access to land has been a huge issue. But yeah, if there are reasons, and there are probably reasons why they live in informal settlements, there's probably enough reason to how are they actually, like you said, how are they actually going to make sure that these rates and whatever it may cost to get the land titles is something that they can afford. So we could move on to the other issues in the paper, because I don't want to take up too much of your time, and I don't know when the break is going to finish. But in terms of, we can touch on language first. One, apparently erection is a bad word. When I last checked, I mean, if you're talking biological terms, you should probably use erection instead of like boner, maybe. And a couple of other things, and so that was kind of funny, and I guess to make sure we don't rattle on too much about talking about penises. Also, the language in terms of the LGBTIQ non-discriminatory terms for trans people, what was the kind of coverage for that? What was the language used in the story itself?
In that one, it was literally just quoting the president of the Rainbow Pride Foundation, Mr. Ken Bulavo, in his media meeting maybe slightly inflated types of stereotypes that the media might because they don't really know the correct kind of phrases and acknowledgement to use to refer to a person who is and who identifies as gender. So I guess, well, that was literally it. Basically, the purpose of this workshop and what the media should take away from it. But yeah, that was it basically.
Just the irony, of course. We're trying to teach you how to communicate better, and you're just not doing it. Yeah, just like with the consultation reporting, it was very poor. I don't understand how that kind of stuff happens. I mean, it could be time constraints, it could be something else. And so there are two huge issues that we could talk about. Which one would you like to address first? I mean, in terms of the sexual assault of the 9-year-old, that's pretty awful. And I mean, we've seen over the past few days and this week and last week and continuously these kinds of stories making the news. Do you, in rather than talking about the issue as a whole, how do you feel it was reported in the context that these kinds of stories are coming up? What was the reporting quality, do you think?
To me, it was almost, it kind of, they have to be really careful of not generating this culture of fear from kind of highlighting, almost sensationalizing this attack on a 9-year-old. And yes, it is a very atrocious, and as they quoted one of the residents, heinous crime. It is incredibly that. But the way that they kind of headlined it as grabbed on way home, girl 9 victim of sex attack, Nikasi residents live in fear in lockdown mode. It's a really,
that's responsible reporting.
Yeah, so I don't, and to make it worse, it's also a female who's also reporting on that issue. So I just, and they're only interviewing males in the actual article, albeit they were the two men who kind of noticed that something was happening. They said that they'd noticed the two men walking down the road and then the girl walking down the road and then running away. I mean, it kind of perpetuates the whole kind of image of, victims, girls as victims, women as victims, and men kind of coming in and saving the day, even though it is only indirectly. So, I think you could suffice to say I wasn't happy with the reporting of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult thing. One, of course, in terms of reporting it, one, you can't quote the survivor of the attack. I mean, we don't necessarily want to encourage people doing updates on where she is possibly with her health status. Is she okay? I just feel like that kind of up-to-date reporting needs to be very, very I mean, it's the same with court reporting on cases of sexual assault. To some extent, you need to take the personal out of it, and you need to find the right people to talk about it. Like first-hand accounts are often very dangerous if you think about it, or even as the men that indirectly saved the day, it's probably not the best people to talk about that, because again, we want to be talking about the preventative aspect, not focusing on what happened or not sensationalizing what happened. And again, it goes back to the language that they use. I am so fed up of hearing victim. Unless somebody died, unless there is a body count, I don't want to hear the word victim. But I guess that's us pushing our feminist agenda. So it's really weird to see. Just generally, it's weird. And then there's parliament going on, and then Rosie Akbar saying we need the support of our men too. So everyone needs to hold hands. And to be fair, if you're holding hands, then you can't do anything else with your hands. So that's always good.
Yeah. And there's stuff about. Oh well, there's an agricultural show happening in Bath.
There's also one happening here somewhere. I have no idea where, but it's happening. Agriculture.
Yeah. And it's interviewing, I think, 3 women from a particular village in the north. I can't find that article, but it's saying that they basically, it cost them $280 to get from their homes to this agricultural show. I don't know if that's just a one-way trip or if it's a return journey, but these three women are hoping to sell 5,000 mandarins for about $1 to $2 a piece. So I did some number crunching earlier, and in their bundles, it's 5 mandarins. So
Yeah,
they'll be able to
that's only
sell,
$1,000.
yeah,
$1,000, maybe more. Yeah,
yeah. So if
it's always
one
hard.
$1,500, and taking away the 280, the profit is about $400. And they said that they wanted to buy household goods for it,
Yeah.
and take that back with them. And it also mentioned that the income is basically from the sea. So I was thinking, okay, so if they fish from the sea, what costs go into that? I mean,
Yeah.
fuel, the boat, repairs for the boat, fishing lines, how much does that cost?
Yeah.
With the bait, how much does that cost? Basically what goes into their lives outside of this agricultural show. Just basically highlighting this one-time event where they'll just get a specific amount of money and not really kind of following up and focusing on their other areas of life that way. So that was a bit of an,
Yeah, and the biggest issue that we're seeing with a number of income generating projects, I mean, I just had to help our Labasa team put together a documentary script. So I did the draft for them, and then they're going to take up and run with it. But the whole issue is when we think about income generating, a lot of people don't think about the reinvestment of funds. We don't think about how much should go back to capital for that group, how much should each individual that has contributed to this income generating project get, because it's also about keeping a pool of money to make sure that you are able to maybe afford the transport. Say say if, what is it, like a third goes to the transport, then maybe a third should only go back to the women. You split that and then keep the leftover third as savings, as something that might go back into maybe going back and re-accessing markets. But then it goes back to how much are they costing these kinds of things, what else is it costing them, also what is it costing them in terms of time away from their family, time away from their community. If they have to come here and travel a distance that costs them, even if it is 202 ways, there and back for a return trip, that's obviously a significant amount of travel that they're having to do. And so it just makes things even more complicated. Did they have to find somewhere to stay? How are they affording that place to stay? How are they affording that food and meals and everything else that they need because they have traveled from so far? So there's just a number of other issues, and while it's always great, and the women always say, yeah, it's good to have an opportunity and good to have market access, but very often we're actually discussing those things that happen around the actual being able to access the market. And so the more that we talk about that, the more that we're able to really break down and understand the economic systems that actually disadvantage a lot of people that need those kind of market accesses or that need to travel such great distances. And just talking about income and all that kind of stuff, Parliament yesterday has said, we will enforce the 232 minimum wage, and while it's different for all the sectors, and now everything is still really confusing in terms of enforcement, 232 is the minimum wage because they're giving us all these other things, like free healthcare. There's also, I think there's like a free water scheme depending on your income. They're talking about medicine and all that kind of stuff. But as you can hear from the women, I mean, I was literally just doing some quick survey stuff. There are women, for example, in the West that make less than $50 and need 500, And so even if they were to work a 10-hour day, 5 days a week, they are hardly even making a fraction of the amount that they need to be able to afford the uniforms, the food. And while yes, sometimes they have for students, they have that sort of bus fare system where they get reimbursed or they get tickets or something. It was really unclear. It was something that was introduced when I was still in school, but it was still trying to figure out what it was doing. If you're talking about health access, sure, the medicine will be free, and sure, the service will be free, but you're spending a whole day at the hospital, you're having to travel there and back, and 100 other things alongside that. So while they're saying we're giving you all this other stuff and
Yeah.
232 is the minimum, it's really not reflecting what is needed in terms of a living wage. So it's very sad. It's
Yeah,
very
and also
sad.
bring it back to the news, what you said about transportation problems, accessing, medical services. There is an article from the north, and it's featuring villages in Zakandrova, I believe. It's just basically highlighting how children in a certain area have to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning to catch a 5:45 a.m. bus to go to a school an hour and a half away. Although, even though there is a school right across the river, which is nearer to them, but they don't have bridges to cross that river. So,
Yeah.
their security and their safety is at risk. And what I really liked was the fact that they went to the bus company owner and asked him, what he thought about this issue. And he was like, oh, I wasn't really aware of it because we weren't making any requests, from people. So I didn't really know that there was an issue. Well, they didn't raise an issue with you because your bus delivery service sucks. And they don't have a way
Yes.
to cross the river.
Yes.
They had no way to come to, your wherever your headquarters or offices are and raise this issue with it. And also, just to kind of add insult to injury, women made the pictures with the children, early in the morning with the bus in the
Yeah.
background of the photo. But in the actual article, they only talked to that bus owner and the village headman and a
Yeah.
male parent as well. That was it.
Oh, because he's so responsible for everything. No, maybe he is. But we know that the majority of the time it's the women that have to be the ones to get the kids up, pack their lunch, sort
Yeah,
everything, find water if necessary for the kid to bath and brush their teeth and everything else. And so while the kids are the ones that have to wake up at 4, their mothers are probably waking up at 3, maybe even earlier. And God knows what time they actually got to bed. There's um
exactly.
there's a whole bunch of really funny comments, and I say funny, but it's a really unfortunate situation. A couple of the women here at the Northern Consultation were talking about the issue of roads, and there's a couple of communities where the roads have to go through hills, and they're scared that every time the bus goes up the hill that it's going to stall and fall back down and then fall off through it, because one, the road is gravel, it's not tar sealed, so there aren't even any ditches, it's just a massive drop down to probably a river. And so just the quality of the buses as well is also a big
Yeah,
issue.
yeah.
So it's something that's constantly raised in these kinds of groups. And I believe a couple of the communities have tried to contact the bus services. But
Hmm.
again, they're a private company. If you think about it, they have almost no reason to be accountable to them. And they're often struggling businesses anyway. I mean, it's really expensive to try and repair a bus because then you have to take it out of its roots, and then what are you going to do to account for that, because you need to make your money. And there are very often only like 2 services a day
Mm.
to communities and back, one in the morning and one in the afternoon or evening. And so, particularly if we're talking about the north, you can't just tell the business owners to fix everything. I mean, they're having to deal with the infrastructural problems themselves that damage the buses. And so these are considerably long term issues that perhaps the government should be trying to take more of a look at, because they should be to some extent responsible for um, the transport that their people have. I mean, there are in some countries where the public transport is very much public transport. It's owned by either the municipality or by the government, so they have to look after those kinds of equipment and services. And I think I don't really imagine or see the government taking on those kinds of responsibilities at the moment. If they were to perhaps you know, be a shareholder or buy into one of the bus companies,
Yeah,
because that's a lot of liability to take on that I don't think is safe for our
yeah,
government at the moment. Um, I mean, there are already people struggling to live on 232, so our economy's not doing the best. I mean, they say it's improving. Who
oh,
knows? One day the Reserve Bank will tell us how it's going. Yeah. So, are there any final things before we wrap up today?
um, in positive news, in the business section, I think we'll end on a positive note. We're seeing a woman in the private sector. She's the branch manager of a new modernized building, the first modernized building, which is up to standards in fire situations. She's the manager for buildings, but she's basically commenting how it's going to give back to the communities, the people who basically use the space for it. So it's showing a woman in private who in a position of authority and not just kind of lower down in like the scale or the ladder. So I did like that. I like her. But I think yeah, that's it for today.
I heard almost none of that because I'm in Labasa and the connection's awful. But I do imagine you're talking about infrastructure and just run it by me very quickly again. It's fine.
It's the branch manager for a private company. Is basically being quoted in the business section of, I believe, the Fiji Times,
Right.
commenting on this new fancy building, which is going to bring back, a lot of stuff into the economy.
Okay.
JPS buildings in Sabu Sabu. And it is Tarun Narayan, quoted in the business section of the Fiji Times.
Yay! Breaking into the other part. That's always cool. It's always cool to see women do this kind of stuff. Accessibility as well. Did you say it was a fantasy building? Or is that like the name of the
No, not
I'm
fantasy.
so confused.
It's basically it's called a mall, basically. They call it a mall.
Okay.
It's the first modern building in Sabu Sabu, which will house
yeah, they have
offices
very few buildings.
Yeah.
I can say that I'm on Vano level. They have very few buildings. They have some stone lions, so that's always really interesting. Either way, thank you so much for having me on your show, Alisia.
You're very welcome, Sian. And
So
for
do
those
you like
who
to tell
yes,
tell people how they can get in touch with us? Yeah. Do
if you
that.
want to
Tell
get in
people how they
contact,
can get in touch with us. Yeah.
you can call us on 3318160, or you can send an email to info@femlinkpacific.org.fj. And you can also like us on our social media pages on facebook.com/femlinkpacific. Like our page and then leave a comment. Or you can go and follow us on Twitter. We use the Twitter name @FemLINKPACIFIC, and then get updates on all things gender equality and all things human.
Yep. So I guess we will resume the show next Monday when I am back in Suva.
Yes, when you're back into the good old country.
Yes. Away from the heat. It's very hot here. So yeah, I'll see you then. Thank you, Alicia.
All right, bye, Sian.
Bye.